Now joined by Dax McCarty, who is part of the studio and match analyst team at Apple TV. Thanks for joining me as we head into this new season. A lot of unknowns for this City squad this year. From an outside looking in, from a national perspective, what are your first thoughts as you look at this really new City team moving into this season?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to hop on. Overall thoughts, I think it's going to be a very difficult start to the season, again, for St. Louis City. And I think you're looking at a really challenging year as the roster stands right now. I look at the job that Corey Ray has on his hands, and to be able to go and get a permanent head coach and to go and start turning this roster over, which clearly last year I thought it lacked the necessary quality to really challenge in Major League Soccer. And so it's going to take time. And I don't know if St. Louis City fans want to hear that. But listen, they've added some pieces to the roster who I think will be high-level contributors. But if you go throughout the offseason and some of the other teams that maybe are the barometer for MLS teams in terms of quality that they have added in the offseason, St. Louis City falls far behind that. And so they've got some work to do, and it's going to take time. People are going to have to be patient with this roster and with Yohan Dome, because it's going to take time to incorporate the things that I think he'll want to incorporate with this squad.
You mentioned new guys on the roster and guys that are trying to get into this team and understand how Yohan Dome wants things to be done in St. Louis. But from your perspective, what do we know right now about these new guys on the team that we really haven't seen in a City kit yet?
Yeah, there's been a couple of additions up the spine that I think will help. And I think MLS experience is always a good thing, especially when you can get players that have been on good teams in the past and they know how to win games. I think that's always positive. And so I'm looking at a kid like Daniel Edelman, who's still at a really good age, who comes from a system in the New York Red Bulls that consistently made the playoffs. And he's got a great mentality, great head on his shoulders. He's going to add stability right in the spine of your team. You lose a guy like Henry Kessler, who was a big loss for that St. Louis team. But then you add a guy like Mamadou Fall, who has previous experience in La Liga and with LAFC. His ceiling as a center back is extremely high. And then Lucas McNaughton, a guy who I played with as a center back in Nashville, if he's healthy and when he is healthy, can be a very good contributor for a good team in Major League Soccer. So a couple of additions up the spine of the team in the defensive half of the field that I think are going to improve them. But I worry about their attack. You trade Joao Klaus to the LA Galaxy, and I know he took a lot of grief, I think, from St. Louis fans for not consistently scoring goals. But he was a quality player when he got service, and he scored some unbelievable goals towards the end of last year. Now, I worry about a team that struggled to score goals last year, getting rid of their best striker. I think that Dame has a lot of work to do, continuing to add to this roster and turn it over so it becomes a really high-level roster in Major League Soccer. Because as I see it right now with St. Louis City, they've got a ton of work to do.
When you look at the midfield, I think Marcel Hartl, who's a co-captain on this team, he's a guy that gets a lot of attention, but he's got to be on both sides of the ball. You mentioned that attack. As it looks right now, does this look like more of an attack by committee because you do lose a guy like Klaus?
Yeah, it has to. It has to be an attack by committee at this point. And it's going to require some really high-level coaching from Yohan Dome to be able to create chances and fashion chances out of this team. I do really like some of the pieces. I think that Marcel Hartl is a very good piece to the puzzle. He's not an out-and-out goal scorer, and he's not an out-and-out creator. He's a little bit of a hybrid, kind of in between, but he's a player that has shown that he can contribute at a very high level in Major League Soccer. I just worry about a little bit of creativity. Other than Celio Pompeu, who had a nice season last year, you don't really have a lot of dynamism in that attack. You don't have a lot of pace to threaten teams in behind. And I think maybe that's why Dame was brought in, to try to come up with solutions with the ball. A team that wants to have possession, a team that wants to build out of the back, a team that wants to drag you from side to side. Those are kind of his calling cards as a manager when he has managed at the lower levels. But it just remains to be seen if St. Louis City has the necessary quality players to be able to implement everything that he's going to look to do. But to your original question, there's not even a doubt in my mind that this is a team that is going to have to score goals by committee because they don't have an out-and-out stud striker who's going to consistently put the ball in the back of the net for you right now.
The cool part about sports, I think, is when you reach this point in the year, everybody's optimistic. I think you look at every team, and every team thinks, oh, maybe we can go on a run. Maybe we can win it. Maybe we can do something this season. If you're having to give a speech to City fans right now on why be optimistic about a lot of unknown that they have this season, what would your message to them be?
Well, you have one of the best goalkeepers in Major League Soccer in Roman Berkey. You have him back and healthy and motivated to do well. You have a young head coach who there's a little bit of an unknown out there, but I would hang my hat on the fact that a couple of young head coaches that have come up through Major League Soccer the last couple of years have done really well. Look at B.J. Callahan in Nashville. Look at Mikey Veras in San Diego. It's not outside the realm of possibility that a coach that's a relative unknown can take a team to another level. Now, with that all being said, you still need your best players to come and show up. And I think that St. Louis City does have a couple of game changers. And so I think this is a massive opportunity for guys like Marcel Hartel to step up, Roman Berkey, who I mentioned before, Cedric Tuchor. He's a very good player, a very good attacking player. They need to make sure that they get these guys on the same page as soon as possible. Because, by the way, I know I'm trying to be optimistic about this season, but the schedule is not easy for St. Louis City to start the season. They start against Charlotte, San Diego, Seattle Sounders, LAFC. I actually don't think I could fashion up a more difficult start to the season if I tried. Maybe throw Inter Miami in there, but I digress. If Yohan DeMay can put some confidence in this group, if they can get a couple of good results early in the season and get a little bit of belief, this is a team in St. Louis that has the necessary backing from ownership and an absolutely top-class fan base to be able to go and make a run. And the other part of it is I think the Western Conference is pretty wide open other than the top 2 or 3 teams. I don't see the Western Conference being on the same level in terms of depth of quality that the Eastern Conference has. It's wide open after the top 2 or 3 teams, and I think St. Louis City with a good start to the year can sneak into that conversation.
All right, Dax, a lot of good information. Thanks for joining us, and have fun this season.
Appreciate you having me anytime.